All right, welcome back to Bâtonnage Connect. This is our finale, and very appropriately, we'll be drinking some Fizz. So this is the Fizz is Female. It's our second session of the webinar, and we're very excited about the panel today and to close out what's been a fantastic few weeks. So before we get started, as usual, some housekeeping. These breakout sessions, as we've said, are meant to be a little more interactive, so we encourage you to use the communication channels available. So we have a chat section, and then we have a Q&A section, and they're different. The chat section is more of an informal way for you to communicate with other participants. Just be sure to select everyone in the to field, as it can default to panelists only. And then there is the Q&A section, and that is where we'd like you to submit your questions for our speakers to answer towards the end of the webinar. And we will do our best to address all the questions, and if there are any outstanding, we will aim to get these answered in a follow-up email to you, our attendees, along with a video recording of the session. And if you find yourself with any streaming issues, you may want to encourage other members of your office or household to log off. You might also try a different browser. We find Chrome or Firefox to be pretty effective. And I would also like to thank our session sponsor today, Gabrielle Glass, and our panelists today will be sipping their bubbly out of these glasses. And now I'll introduce the moderator, Blaine Ashley. Blaine is the founder of New York Champagne Week and the Fizz is Female, which shines a spotlight on leading ladies in the bubbly wine biz and celebrates sparkling wine made, owned, and or led by female powerhouses from around the world. In 2016, Ashley's focus on all things bubbly awarded her a nod in Wine Enthusiast magazine as a 40 under 40 tastemaker, where she was aptly dubbed the Champagne Queen. In addition to all this, Ashley continues to work with wine and artisanal spirit companies on developing creative brand awareness strategies and is set to launch her second champagne label in fall 2020. So we're very excited to partner with Blaine with the Fizz is Female for this panel, so I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Katie, and the rest of the Bâtonnage team for the opportunity to bring the Fizz is Female to this female empowerment event. I also just want to take a moment to raise a glass to you ladies for smoothly and successfully transitioning this event to the online space for the last 3 weeks. Yes. And I think this is event number 10, and that is no easy feat. So I hope that everyone in the Bâtonnage team is going to be drinking some bubbly in celebration this evening. So cheers to you ladies. Thank you again. And I'm super excited about the group of female powerhouses that we have here today, leading ladies in the Fizz biz, as I like to call them. And I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves. So Tawnya, if you can just take it away.
Absolutely. Hello, I'm Tawnya Falkner. I'm the founder and CEO of Grand Courtage Sparkling Wine and Très Chic Rosé, and I produce both of them in France. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but welcome everyone and happy Friday.
Thank you. And Paula?
Hi, I'm Paula Kornell. So glad to be with you all this afternoon and celebrating the end of the Bâtonnage seminars. I'm the proprietress of Paula Sparkling Wine and Paula Kornell of Kornell Wine Company.
Love it. Maria?
Hi, my name is Maria Hunt. I am the Bubbly Girl, the website like that. I wrote a book about champagne and sparkling cocktails, and I do a lot of editorial writing as well as brand copywriting, and I'm really excited to be here and be part of the finale of Bâtonnage.
And last but certainly not least, Tracy.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Bogue with Club Bubbly. Started Club Bubbly back in 2016, kind of as a fun way to bring different bubbly from all over the world, including champagne, right to your door.
Perfect. Well, let's get started with Tawnya. So Tawnya, you come from an entirely different industry. How did you crack into the wine business and focus in on sparkling wine, like purely? How'd you hone in on sparkling wine? What was your idea there?
Yes, I took a leap, ended up in the business. I was a real estate developer and my background's architecture. So I was living in San Francisco about 10 years ago, which of course is so food and wine centric. And I personally always loved bubbles, and I was surprised by how few people drank it outside of New Year's weddings, things like that, but it's so food friendly. And I just thought there was a tremendous opportunity. And of course, Napa, Sonoma right in the backyard. So a lot of people say, well, why did you decide to go to France? But really, when I would look at the average American consumer, if you will, most people still say I'm drinking champagne, and whether it's Cook's or Andre or Dom Perignon, and so, but there's so much of that association of champagne in France. So I thought that there was a unique opportunity to ultimately create something that was an affordable French that could compete against the likes of the domestic sparklers, but give sort of that French cachet and elegance. So back then, I was surprised by the level of traditionalism and lack of innovation in a lot of the French wines. And sadly, in the U.S., they say that 70% of wine is bought off of label and packaging alone. And with my design background, I kind of joke, I used to design buildings, but now I design bottles, because that 4-inch slot of real estate is extremely expensive. And it's like, what's going to make somebody want to pick your bottle up off of the shelf comparative to somebody else? And of course, it's package, it's price, it's scores, things like that. But ultimately, I sort of thought there was an opportunity to bring that timeless elegance to the table, but something a little bit more modern and fresh. And but when I embarked on this journey, I thought there was an opportunity in packaging from a palate standpoint. The American palate's a little sweeter than Europeans. Females a little sweeter than men's as a general rule. And so I didn't set out to design a sweet wine, but just something that offered some unique varietals with a little bit more of a fruit on the finish and not quite as much acidity. And then ultimately something that was an affordable everyday luxury, so that you can drink bubbles on a daily or a weekly basis, not a couple times a year. And so that was really my positioning, was that price, palette, packaging. I took the leap with a business plan in hand and moved to France. And I figured, worst case, I'd travel for a year or so. Best case, I'd convince somebody to say yes. And so we launched 6.5 years ago now, and almost 7, and it's been quite the crazy journey, because there's very few female owners in the industry, certainly. And you had asked about raising capital and just trying to be taken seriously. It's like, oh, that's cute, is that just my pet project? And it's like, oh, I can't believe how many people still, oh, is this your side project? I'm like, no, this is a 100-hour-a-week job. This isn't a side hustle. But just trying to bestow the merits. And when you launch with only one SKU at first, it's hard. And I think that at the end of the day, you have to create the wins to get somebody to say yes. And so after the first year, I found getting distribution was so challenging. And sadly, probably 85-90% of the people, the decision makers at the distributor level and the retailer level, so often end up being men. And I'm constantly saying, hey, with all due respect, females are the core audience for bubbles and rosé. So like, think about it a little bit differently. So after about a year, I landed Virgin Airlines, and that was sort of what put us on the map with distributors, because they're like, oh, so we have our little mini bottles. So Virgin bought 200,000 bottles of our 187s, and that's when we got Young's California. And then they're like, oh, never heard of you, but you must be doing something right to land such a big high profile account. And I would say at the end of the day, whether talking about distribution, trying to land an account, or certainly with raising capital, my sort of recipe for success has always been over prepare, know your numbers inside and out, who your audience, what matters to them, because that's the only way. If you start speaking their language and like almost surprise them by how over prepared you are, then they have no choice but to say like, okay, this person means business. This isn't a pet project, a side dream, or something like that.
Right, and that's been a common theme throughout the festival this year. We've been hammering it in to know how to write a business plan, know your numbers. So it's imperative to success, wouldn't you say? And you were an early supporter and speaker at the Fizz female events when we started in 2018, and thank you for that. People are always very intrigued by your experience raising capital. So could you shed just a little bit more light on your process and some of the adversities you face, particularly with gender inequality issues and sexism?
Well, certainly, raising capital hands down, I think is the hardest thing anyone will ever embark on in their professional career period, no matter men, women. But when you slice and dice the stats, women only get 2.7% of capital, despite the fact that we start more than 50% of businesses. When you break it out further and look at minorities, it's less than 1%, and it's like, I think it's 0.001% for African American females. And so when you consider the fact that 97% of capital is going to white men, period, there's something inherently wrong in the system when women start businesses at more than equal the rate. And even when you look at Fortune 500 companies and such, women at the helm or on boards far outperform. So it's kind of fascinating. And that's where I think when you're trying to diffuse the no and get people to say yes, it's like cite all of these things so that they are more aware of the return level. I've done 3 capital rounds. Like I said, worst thing I've ever done. And, you know, we're fairly large. We did 50,000 cases last year. And despite the successes and, you know, selling, you know, millions of dollars each year and well beyond, you know, proof of concept, as they say in the fundraising world. I think consumer goods is difficult. Wine is difficult because high tech and biotech often are are the darlings. Everyone sees these crazy returns. And so, you know, it's at the end of the day, what's your unique selling position? How are you going to go to market in a different standpoint than others? Understanding saturation points. And so it's like, get mentors, because that's one thing that I definitely didn't do in the earlier stage is ask people, because I, you know, the type A and always wanted to make sure it looked like I knew everything and was over prepared. But fundraising is a whole different thing. And because I come from real estate, I've done $50-100 million deals and come from a very legal and financial background, and yet I've struggled. I mean, I'm fortunate in 3 rounds I've raised $3 million since launching the company, but you never have nearly enough capital. It's unfortunately the hard part in this industry, as the others will attest to as well.
Well, thank you, Tawnya. So cheers to you and congratulations on your success so far and being the total epitome of a one-woman show. You really are.
Well, I got a great team.
You do. You have a full 100% ladies on your team, correct? So it's all female?
I have 11 team members, all female, so female owned, managed, operated. Didn't set out to do that. It's just turned into that, which is fun too.
It feels like you wear all of the hats for having a team. So I stand by what I said. So next we'll chat with Paula a little bit. Paula, you have such an iconic name in the wine industry. And I want to hear more about your experience in paving your own path and starting your own legacy, if you will, with Paula Kornell Sparkling and Kornell Wine Company.
I guess it starts with being a very lucky girl growing up not only in Napa Valley, but growing up in the sparkling wine business. Growing up in Napa Valley at a time when it was really a sweet place to be. There were very few vintners. Everyone was very good friends. You sat down at the table with, and it was at the table with the Madavi family, the Martini family, the Heights family. It was all really families together. I grew up in a family where the work ethic was very important. My father was first generation here in the United States. So his parents, his grandparents and great uncle both made sect in Germany. So when he came to the United States, he came with the intention of making sparkling wine, or he called it champagne at that time. Started in Sonoma County and then came to Napa once he met my mother, homesteaded here. It was truly the power behind the throne. So I had a very strong-willed, a strict father, but my mother was definitely someone with an MD, but was also an opera singer that brought the arts and the warmth of the house, and again, back to the table and entertaining to the family. So you were always working, and I'm laughing now that I just got these baby peacocks, but I started, the first job was sitting in front of the tasting room selling walnuts, prunes, and peacock feathers because that's in the garden. So from there, graduating to putting labels on the bottles, to riddling bottles because everything was hand riddled, stacking bottles on the tirage stacks, to getting my pigtails stuck in the labeling line. So it was, you did everything. My father believed that you never ask someone to do something if you hadn't done it already yourself. So it was a strong work ethic, and I'm glad I had that growing up. To the point that growing up also, once in college, I spent summers, if it wasn't working at the winery, it was working I spent 2 summers as a management trainee at Stanford Court Hotel, which in those days it was before Ritz-Carlton, before Four Seasons, and though that was the king of hotels. So doing that, and then after college, spending time on the floor at Sherry Lehman in New York, still on Madison Avenue, 2 years of not knowing what the hell a French Burgundy was, but I certainly learned pretty quickly. So when I came back to Napa Valley and started working with my father, that's really what I thought I was going to be doing the rest of my life, was going straight into being at Hans Cornell for the rest of my time. It was obviously in my and something I loved. But I'd like to say, the old comment about putting your eggs in one basket is not good. Tawnya was just talking about the contract for the airlines. We had quite a few. We had United and American Airlines. At the same time, it was when all the French were coming into Napa Valley, Chandon, Mumm, and there was no way that a small family winery could compete, even though at that time it was probably up to 85,000 cases. So unfortunately, it was 92 when our family winery went into bankruptcy and was closed. And it was the same year that I chaired Auction Napa Valley, and being always involved in the Napa Valley vintners, it was a serendipitous time. So to be in front of Napa Valley at that time, and for us to raise $1 million, over $1 million for the auction, and go right into a job with Joseph Phelps, it was sort of the biggest, I guess, kick in the ass that you needed, was going from a family business in the bubble business to, God, I have to find a job now, and I have to really, I have to come on my own now. So Joe Phelps was a great start of starting with marketing, director of marketing for Joseph Phelps. And it really gave me an advantage of learning about still wines, that then took me on to Robert Mondavi for, I don't know, almost 10 years, between running a winery for them and doing national accounts and running a couple of other wineries, to finally being kicked again in the butt by mentors and people that I had strong relationships with, to say, you know everybody, Paula, why don't you start a consulting business? And as I found, like all of us have, that over the years, you do have all those names in your basket, and you sort of know who to call and who to ask for what. So about 7 years ago, I started Cornell Wine Company, which started as sales and marketing for primarily Napa Valley Cabernet. I worked with the Moon Mountain AVA for a while too. But then it became, back to Tawnya, you need to know your dollars, and you need to know how to read a balance sheet. You need to know what your cost of goods are. And so many people have no idea what anything was. They no idea what their business model looks like. So at the same time, I'm drinking champagne the whole time. Same time, I'm enjoying sparkling wine the whole time. Walking down the path of trying to do something a couple of times with my name on it. And a great mentor of mine, Pat Roney, who is the president or CEO of Vintage Wine Estates, came to me and said, Paula, we have no sparkling wine in our portfolio, and would you be interested in doing a 50-50 partnership? And with that, I jumped at that opportunity. That was the beginning of Paula Kornell Sparkling Wine.
That's incredible. And when was that?
That was about 4 years ago, and the release of the Blanc de Noir was in October of last year.
Okay, and someone on the chat is asking where they can find a bottle of your bubbly. So can you let us know?
It's right now in Napa Valley. It's pretty, it's everywhere, but it's available in Georgia. It's pretty much available in quite a few different states. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's sort of locked in a lot of distributors' houses. It didn't get very far, but getting there little by little, both the Napa and the California.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing a bit about your story. And now we'll chat with Maria Hunt. So Maria,
Hi, welcome.
Hi. So you developed the persona, the Bubbly Girl, long before Instagram existed and Facebook wasn't being used as a marketing tool quite yet.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
You were ahead of the curve. So can you tell us what that was like? What spurred the idea and how you've stayed relevant through the popularization of champagne and sparkling wine as an everyday beverage, and also the rise of these social media platforms for marketing yourself?
Yes. Yes. So it's been like a tale with twists and turns. It really started kind of growing up in Chicago in a family where everybody loves sparkling wine, and we would have different sparkling punches that my grandmother and aunts would make at sort of family special occasions. I catered and bartended my way through journalism school, went to Medill at Northwestern, which was expensive, so I needed to work, and just really got into the idea of having sparkling wines not just for those special occasions. I became a restaurant critic at the San Diego newspaper, and it's sort of a dream job, and started learning about wine and going out and eating, and that's when I started talking to sommeliers about pairing food and wine. And Paula was reminding me, talking about Sekt from Germany. I went on a kind of whirlwind trip to New York to kind of learn about just sort of what some of the best restaurants are doing. And I went to Rocco de Spirito's Union Pacific at the time. And I was on a budget, of course. And so I asked the waiter, what kind of wine could I use that would work with these French, Asian flavors that are in this cuisine? And he said, Riesling Sekt. And so I was kind of amazed. It was like softly sparkling, really kind of floral, a little bit of fruit, crispness. And it really worked with everything from curry to kind of really delicate seafood. And so that's when I started thinking more about the idea of sparkling wines as really a amazing pairing wine. And then when you get outside of champagne, as wonderful as champagne is, just because of the price point associated with it, it's not an everyday wine for a lot of people. So when you start looking to places like, Italy for Prosecco, or Spain for different cavas, or, South Africa where they make Cap Classique, every major wine region in the world makes some sort of sparkling wine that goes wonderfully with food. And then there's sort of also the sort of spiritual and sort of personality component of these wines. They're the kinds of wines that make people happy, just the pop of the cork. They remember some good time that they had. And I noticed I started meeting women, other women who really love drinking sparkling wine above everything else. Like that was their go-to drink all the time. And they always sort of had this special joie de vivre. They love to travel, they love to entertain, and it was kind of about living the good life. And so that's where that whole concept of being a bubbly girl came from.
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
And you and I have spoken about some of the challenges that you faced in this business. What challenges have you faced as a Black female wine professional in this line of work?
Well, I don't know. I think everything that you're bringing to the table, there are two sides to it. So I know when I was looking to publish a book, I did a book for Random House. I'm going to hold it up, called The Bubbly Bar, Champagne and Sparkling Wine Cocktails for Every Occasion. I had developed a relationship as a writer with Random House and the Clarkson Potter, their cookbook division. And I think they liked this was never expressed. I think they liked the idea of doing a book with a Black author. And so in that way, I think that was helpful, and because I was different from everybody else in the market. And then at that time, back in 2007 or so, there really weren't a lot of people talking about sparkling wine is an everyday thing. I think the challenge came after the book was published in 2009. Yeah, it was the recession was happening, but also I think that I would have thought that I would have gotten more opportunities to work for brands and doing brand marketing. So you really don't know the reason why you don't get the opportunities that you don't get. I think now there's an opportunity just with the rise of social media. I mean, everyone can kind of be their own brand and do marketing. So thinking about, for brands, you really want to think about, who is your audience and what's the audience that you're trying to reach out to? Black consumers have 1.4 trillion. It's probably more than that because that was a statistic from last year from Nielsen, 1.4 trillion in buying power. So you may be killing it, but unless your marketing really speaks to that audience and unless your marketing team, sort of reflects who you're trying to reach, you're probably, leaving some money on the table. So I've been fortunate in that I've been able to find, independent gigs. So I do a lot of work with Total Wine and More, and doing, marketing copywriting. So if you go in the store and you see sort of a paper, sort of a brochure about different styles of wine, I probably wrote that. And also doing a lot of editorial writing. Really with the pandemic, marketing wasn't as much in demand. And so I pivoted back into doing a lot more editorial writing. And so it's been a great opportunity. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there just with Black consumers and available for helping with storytelling. So.
Well, when does your next book come out? Are you working on another one? That was
I
about 10 years ago.
My next book yet, but I really should be doing that. Yeah, so that's one of the plans. I also do have a URL I've been holding on to about American sparkling wine, because it was especially when I saw Prosecco and Cava coming into this market and making such a dent, that those both have organizations that are unified to try to get their product into the US market. There's really nothing like that in the US to really celebrate all the wonderful styles of domestic sparkling wine like Paula Kornell. Let me show you the label on this. This is just beautiful. I mean, look at that packaging.
I love it.
Stripes. I'm like, who wouldn't want? Yeah, it's like, who wouldn't want to drink that? And it's affordable. It's a sparkling brewed. And then just getting people into the idea, and that was part of the fun of it, of like saying you don't have to just use this for a toast. These are wines that are wonderful for pairing. So thinking about sushi and sparkling wine, thinking about Brut Rosé, like from Rita's, with some great barbecue or something like that. I mean, there are a lot of really wonderful pairings, and when you sort of explore some of these domestic wines, they're a little more affordable, and so it makes it something that you can do more often. So it's living that bubbly kind of 365 lifestyle.
I think we can all agree on that. I think we can also all agree that bubbles make everything better. So as we go to our next speaker, Tracy, what made you decide to launch a 100% sparkling wine club? Because that is like the best, and everyone on here I'm sure can agree.
Yes.
Yeah, so back in 2016, when Club Bubbly was started, there really wasn't anything like it out there. So many people in my area, I'm located on the Central Coast in California, they are members of wine clubs of wineries. So they loved the idea of having variety in the club and also having it something specific as sparkling and champagne. So that's kind of how the idea was started. I really thought it would just be my friends and family and people I knew signing up. But once we started doing some marketing, that's when I really understood that the new demand for sparkling and champagne is out there. And people have really loved that there's such a variety. Each shipment that we send out, there's 3 bottles in the sparkling or the mixed shipment, and it's from 3 different regions in the world. So there's a small level of education that we put out in the newsletters, but it's really just to show and highlight that sparkling is more than just champagne. You can get really beautiful cavas and proseccos and domestic sparkling here in California. So it was just a fun way to highlight that and bring it to the masses.
Can you tell us a bit about your background before you started clubbubbly.com, which led you to launch Club Bubbly?
Yeah, so I grew up in an agricultural entrepreneurial family. My father has an irrigation company, so he's worked on putting vineyard water systems in vineyards since I was born. So I've watched the industry, just in terms of wine, explode on the Central Coast. And when I was of the age where I needed to figure out what to do with my life, I knew it was going to be wine, because I've always loved food and wine and travel, and it really made sense to me. At 18 or 19, whenever I kind of figured it out, I went to Cal Poly, which is a college here in San Luis Obispo that has a focus on wine production and enology, viticulture, marketing. So I was one of the first classes that graduated with a minor in wine and viticulture. Now they have a whole developed program. But while I was in school, I worked at Letitia, which is a local sparkling wine house. It was founded originally by Maison Dutes, so they had some French roots there. And that's kind of where the love of bubbly started. But then I spent a few years after college working as a sales rep for a couple different distributors here in California. And I was able to work for two kind of powerhouse women in the industry, Kimberly Jones and Suzanne Chambers. So that kind of gave me the feeling that I could launch and do my own thing, because I've watched two very successful women in the business have their own distribution companies. Also, going back to my family, my dad's been a business owner my entire life, and he raised us all to work hard and go out and do it, and basically there's no reason that you can't do it. So I never had those feelings of, oh, this is scary, can I do this? It was more, of course you're gonna do it. You can do it. And so that's kind of when it all came together and Club Bubbly was started.
And how has COVID positively impacted your business, and negatively, if at all? Because I know that the online space is booming right now, so I'm sure you're doing quite well. Can you give us a little insight on that?
I would love for people to think of sparkling as something that's for every day, but subscription clubs in general are a luxury. So I've had some cancellations, but I've had just as many new members come on board, or a lot of gift shipments are being sent out, because all those amazing events that we participate in throughout the year have all been canceled. And so people choose to send a really special gift instead. So whether it be a one-time shipment, which we can do, or a 3-month subscription, or, it's the buyer's choice there. I feel like they're choosing to spend their money on kind of experiences as opposed to things. And the great thing about Club Bubbly is I think it's a little bit of both. It's the experience of trying new sparkling that you haven't had before, and a little bit of education and a little bit of fun and some recipes and things. So I think that's where I've kind of hit a sweet spot in terms of not just being a product that we're selling, even though everyone is drinking more these days. It's also
Well, we'd be remiss not to mention our Bâtonnage as a female collaboration box that we have with you. So we're doing a fun collaboration that is being sold on Club Bubbly that features Paula's wine. So who asked earlier about where you can buy Paula's wine, it is on the website. And in the box, we also have Tawnya Falkner's Le Grand Courtage Rosé, Sparkling Rosé, Laurent Perrier Ultra Brut, and Chandon Minis, which I believe that Tracy is drinking right now. So that is available on the website, and anyone that wants to check that out, they can enter the code Fizz at checkout to get a discount. Oh no, not Fizz, I'm sorry, Bâtonnage at checkout to get a discount. So I'm gonna stay on the COVID conversation a little bit longer. Paula, can you tell us how COVID has impacted your business?
Well, I've been doing, as I think all of us have been, so many Zoom sales meetings.
Yeah.
So we're still, so many are in that mode of trying to sell to the distributor, and that is the only way we can get in front of everyone. And it is, it works. However, you feel like you're just speaking to a blank screen half the time, so you really don't know if it's if they're enjoying the conversation or if it's a conversation at all. So it is it's a bit hard. However, then on the other side, you see retail. I see retail where I know the retail is going gangbusters, and the website also has picked up immensely because people want to drink, and I think we all seen that for our minds is that people are drinking their self to death, and they're drinking, I guess, drinking their heart's desire, and they're drinking a lot more bubbles, and they're making, just like Tracy having a cocktail, they're making cocktails with it too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And COVID has definitely dampened the conversations on tariffs, and they're very much still a looming threat. And you know, we're facing the potential 100% tariff increase on sparkling wine. Tawnya, you've been really active in the space and advocating against this. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what's going on and your plans to face this if it actually becomes a reality?
Mm-hmm. So for the participants, last year there were tariffs proposed. There's two different things. One is a tariff relating to the Airbus, which is part of the airline industry and is retaliation. They're putting a tariff in place that's 25%. For some reason, sparkling was exempt, but like our rosé, we got a 25% tariff starting last October. Then there was a digital tax that would, really affects like Amazon, Facebook, things like that. That's also being proposed. That was hot and heavy in fourth quarter and the beginning of this year, February 14th, Valentine's Day. We got the good news that they were at bay, and so we thought we had all sort of survived. But in light of the election year and everything else, they're very active about the tariffs again, and it being possibility of 100%. So between these two tariffs, and what that means, it's 100% on invoice. And so what we pass to distributors and then to accounts. So effectively, French, much of the European wines are facing the real possibility of 100% increase. And while theoretically you could pass that on to the consumer, the reality is people can only pay so much, and especially in light of a recession and the times that we're in with COVID. So everyone's hurting financially. And so I think all of us are facing the very real possibility of our business is being pretty decimated. So for everyone, consumers, distributors, anyone on this call, I wrote a letter summarizing all of the issues in a very detailed form. I'll share it with Bâtonnage Group, and maybe they can share it along, because any and all voices being heard is so important. And I think what people don't realize is I think a lot of people presume that the American wine industry would be like, oh, great, we don't, it helps the American wine industry, but it doesn't, because all of the support industries, from warehousing, trucking, distributors, things like that. So there are upwards of like 150,000 jobs that are at risk if these go into place, and a tremendous amount of loss in tax revenue. So it's between COVID and this, so you just kind of can't get a break. I know us personally, we're 70% on premise, meaning that we're sold in restaurants, hotels, things like that. So our business has been decimated because of that, and then the lingering realities of the possible tariffs. And so I think the only thing you can do as a business owner is have a plan B, C, D. I feel like we're on version F at this stage, but some things there's not a workaround, and so it's pretty daunting when your livelihood and years of effort and can be destroyed at the political whims of these tariffs and stuff. So it's pretty real, I think, for a lot of people that are solely European wines or spirits that will be impacted.
Tawnya, I'm glad you brought up about California and about United States brands, because I get that all the time. Well, that's not going to hurt you. That should be really great for you. And no, not at all, because not only all those other people that are involved, but just in general, we want a strong sparkling wine and champagne market. We don't want that champagne to be dwindling away, and it's sad.
Thank you for piping in, Paula. And also, Tracy, do you have plans for if this goes through, would you still be 100% sparkling? Would you open yourself up to some still wines? Do you have any plans for that?
Yeah, so when the first round was kind of in discussions, I basically froze and I stopped all advertising and I just kind of hunkered down thinking, well, I might have to close this up. I really didn't see a way out of it if we have the 100%. And now that it's back on the table, I'm not letting myself do that this time. I'm not going to freeze. I'm going to keep going as if nothing is happening, but then plan for the worst at the same time. So yeah, I don't know how it could continue as it is. If I just made price increases, I feel like I would lose so many members. So it might be a mix. I have thought of that in the past, kind of doing like an old world, new world kind of club in addition. But now maybe it would be something new.
You'll figure it out. I have faith. One of my favorite quotes is, if plan A doesn't work, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. And I live by that as an entrepreneur because there's so many ups and downs. So you have to think positively and be resourceful. Maria, on that note, what are some tips that you give to women here that want to go out on their own, and that to give them kind of the gutspa and the courage to go out on their own and stay positive through the ups and downs?
I think it's really important to believe in yourself, to, get as much education as you can. So when I was working on the book, I did do some credentialing with the Court of Master Sommeliers as well as the Culinary Institute of America, certified wine professional. But I really feel like if you know in your gut, you can see the path, I think you should go for it and others will follow. I remember when I was a brand new food writer and was at a seminar and met a very powerful book agent. And everyone was kind of going up to her and kind of pitching their ideas. And I told her the idea about writing a book about champagne and sparkling wine cocktails and with wines from all around the world. And she's like, yeah, I don't see a book in that. And I was like, really? So, I could have gone away and said, okay, I guess there's no book in that. But what I realized, I'm like, she doesn't know what I know. So, in a way, she was right. There's not one book in that. There have been like 5 or 6 books in that. So again, that's a lesson. If you know your business and you know the numbers and what's happening demographically and you think you can make it work, you should go for it.
Thank you. We have some questions. So I'll go ahead and ask Paula, have you seen some importers and distributors raising prices on imports already?
Oh, yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah, distributors were raising prices already in October before the holiday season to just cover their butts.
Cover their bases, yeah.
Everybody was worried. So,
and larger brands, larger like houses were bringing in boatloads of champagne.
Literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
To do the exact same thing.
Yeah, speaking of knowing your numbers, I went on Yahoo Finance in October to talk about all that, and I was like, this is intimidating. But I had some stats to pull out. But yeah, I've noticed that they were raising the prices there. Someone, the same Carol also asked, raising prices on existing inventory as well. So yeah, I think that's what pretty much what we just said. They seem to, a lot of importers raise the prices across the board to cover their basis. We have a question from Becky Sue Epstein, and she is asking, I'll ask Tawnya, do you think that women can only market to women, that women can't market to men as effectively?
No, I do not. And when you think about the reverse of that is how many men are at the helm of companies, whether female or otherwise, and their marketing. And I just think it's changing your messaging and recognize, like I said earlier, even with raising capital, it's knowing your audience. But I think there's ways to think about how you appeal purely from the standpoint of remove gender. It's like food and wine are the great common denominator of all people, all cultures, rich and poor. And so that is, I think, especially in the midst of COVID, that's what most of us miss more than anything, is the time with family and friends. And so I think that there's a tremendous opportunity of going back to the basics. And Maria had mentioned that, joie de vivre, and that's really what we're about. It's like the life simple pleasures. And so I think that rather than trying to market male or female, it's like just treating people as it's human connection and what you're trying to do to capitalize on that. And, we all have husbands, fathers, brothers, whatnot. And so it's just taking cues from some of that and, understanding what they like too.
Mm-hmm.
And Becky also asked a two-part question. She asked Maria, what about Black women? Can they only market to Black women?
Oh, no,
And
we don't.
So.
I mean, I wouldn't have I wouldn't have had as huge of an audience thinking back to 2007, if I were only speaking to Black women. But I will point out that women do make 80% of the buying and purchasing decisions in the home. So, especially even if you have a high-powered man, he's usually not planning his own, Christmas party or even, at home entertaining. It's a woman usually doing those things. So I think when you are thinking about the kind of marketing that does speak to women, you are going to be hitting everybody really effectively.
And the chat's kind of blowing up about the tariffs, so I just want to make something clear.
Okay.
We were talking about the looming threat of the 100% increase, not the 25%. So I hope that is clear for everyone. And also, Maria, your last book just was purchased on Amazon.com, and people want to know where they can buy more.
Oh, okay. Well, they can get them directly from me. Okay. I did not know it sold out just moments ago.
Someone just bought your last copy.
Thanks. So directly from me, go to thebubbligirl.com, or you can @ me on Instagram @thebubbligirl and sign up for my newsletter, and I'll get you a book, and I'll even sign it for you.
Yay!
Yes. I think better to support you directly, as Rita Jamay just said in the chat.
Yes.
We'd rather buy from you directly for sure. And the signed copy is the deal.
Yeah.
So before we sign off and hand the baton back over to the Bâtonnage team and Katie and Rebecca and everyone, I just want to ask what everyone is sipping today to celebrate the Fizz is female and the conclusion of Bâtonnage. So Tawnya, what are you having in your glass?
I am having our Brut Rosé, so it's Le Grand Courtage Brut Rosé. This is Chardonnay, Uni Blanc, and Gamay, so very unusual blend, and it's crisp, light, refreshing, baby bubbles, a nice hint of sort of some strawberry, raspberry, and lilac on the finish.
It's delicious, and it's found pretty readily available at Whole Foods, right? And it's also on clubbubbly.com.
Yes, so we're in 47 states and lots of different places, and wine.com is also a good place for any of our wines as well.
Fantastic. And Paula, what are you having in your glass?
I'm drinking my Napa Valley Blanc de Noir, the 2017 from Carneros.
Can't wait to try it. I have a bottle of your other wine in I'm so excited. Maria, is that what you're having? You're having the other?
Yes, actually, I have Paula's Brut. It's non-vintage, but this is the very first release, 2020. It's 80% Chardonnay, 20% Pinot Noir. It's the residual sugar is about 8%. So it is just slightly a little bit of hint of fruit, and it'd be perfect with just nothing at all, or pairing with any kind of summery meal. So I can't wait to do some of that when we get offline.
Fantastic. And Tracy, you have a cocktail that you made with the minis, the Chandon minis.
With the Chandon Sweet Star, I had a cocktail like this at the winery a few years ago. So a little bit of ice, a little bit of soda water, the Sweet Star, and a little bit of fresh mint. It's also really great with cucumber. I tried that the other day, and that was really good. Yeah.
And Janae on the chat is asking where we can find that swag bag, and actually Ella just piped it in, so great. So the link to where you can find the multi-bottle package on Club Bubbly. It is in the chat, and there's a discount code if you enter Bâtonnage at checkout for 20% off. And then I am enjoying the Laurent Perrier brew. And Laurent Perrier was part of the Fizz Female Session 1. So it's a female-led team and boasts a female president, Michelle DeFeo. So I thought I would enjoy that to make it a little bit diversified today. So thank you, ladies, so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to chat with us today about the world of bubbly. Thank you to everyone who attended the session, and thank you to the team at Bâtonnage. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. So we'll hand it back over to Katie and the Bâtonnage team.
All right. Thank you so much, Blaine. Thank you, ladies. That was a great end to Bâtonnage Connect. So it's been 4 weeks. I'm actually drinking 2 bottles. I decided I've got some Paula Kornell bubbles as well. So I'm just gonna drink all the bubbles today because we wrapped up a great weeks, and just want to thank all of our panelists and all of our attendees to sticking with us through all of this. We know it was so, it was topsy-turvy there at the beginning and what we were going to do, and going virtual, you've all stuck behind us. So appreciate that. Appreciate the support from Sarah and Stevie, the founders. And, this couldn't have happened without our Bâtonnage team currently, Rebecca Johnson, my right-hand woman, and Ella Wingy, who kind of joined the team right as we got started, and she jumped right in and has helped so much with just handling all the questions and all, there's so much back end going on with these virtual events. So it's all 3 of us, and we're just really excited that we were successful. So here's to next year. I'll turn it over to Rebecca.
Well, cheers to that for sure. I just want to say, it was 4 incredible weeks. Who knew we were planning this live one-day Bâtonnage forum that transformed into 4 weeks, 10 sessions. The perspectives, the experiences of these panelists today, but also over these 4 weeks, we've had the most amazing moderators, panelists, and I also want to thank the attendees. You have tuned in for each of these 10 sessions. You have been vivacious and voracious and exciting on the chats. I have been inspired and motivated, and I'm incredibly humbled by everything that I have learned and experienced over these 4 weeks. So this has been the most special time that I will take with me forever. I, of course, would like to also thank Stevie and Sarah for trusting Team Bâtonnage to take their inspiration and really run with it. And we can't be more thankful for that. And then, of course, to my team here at Team Bâtonnage, Katie and Ella, I cannot think of 2 other people that I would want to do this with. It has been, it's been fantastic. So cheers to everybody. Cheers to the panel today, all the panelists and moderators that came before. Thank you to our sponsors, and we're so thrilled about our charity partners. Ella, I don't know if you want to say a few words, but thank you again to everybody. It's been amazing.
Yep, just to reiterate, it's been so great seeing all these panelists talk. They're all very inspirational. Like, it is so humbling to be on the back end to watch it, and then also just to work with Katie and Rebecca, because they aren't panelists, but they're also very inspiring women to work with. So thank God it's Friday. I'm already a little tipsy.
Yeah.
Cheers
to that.
Cheers.
Well deserved, ladies. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.